Hello, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us this evening for Theater 101. My name is Kenneth Franzel, and I'm going to be guiding you through this workshop. So thank you guys for stopping in, taking some time. If you would go ahead and you want to leave a comment in the chat. If you have any questions about um, set design, if you have any inquiries, or if you're looking for some tips or some tricks, or just some things that maybe I don't cover here, or some questions about some specific things. If you want to leave those in the comments, what we're going to do after the fact, we're going to do a follow-up podcast for this in coordination with our new podcast streams for Rosedale Community Players. And I'll answer those questions there if I can get a chance to. So once again, thank you for joining Theater 101. This is the set design class. I guess I'll start with myself. My name is Kenneth Franzel. I am a director, an actor. I have worked on countless plays and productions over the years, both on stage, both behind the camera, and as well as on stage in front of cameras, things like that. So I've been doing this for quite a while, and yeah, I got into set designing because as a director, when you're creating a show, you want it to look a certain way, and I'm kind of hard-headed, and I have trouble telling people what I want. So I found it just easier to start designing my own sets. I'm not trained in any way. I've read some books, and I've just learned some things here and there over the years that have helped me to learn. And now I'm just going to share that information with you. So a little bit about Rosedale Community Players. Rosedale Community Players has been around since 1969. We are a community theater group here in Metro Detroit, Michigan. We do right now, we currently do 3 shows a year. And we are a very inclusive, very loving, it's one of the best groups I've ever worked with. I'm honored to be working with this group. I'm honored to have been asked to serve on the board and do all sorts of other things. Currently, I'm very honored to be the vice president of Rosedale Community Players. Theater 101 is a project that I kind of formed last year as part of my goals for being the vice president. I am responsible for some educational workshops, and trying to figure out what that looked like. I decided to kind of break it down to its basic elements, and that's where Theater 101 was formed. If you joined us at any point in time last year for our in-person workshops last summer, we had some amazing workshops about set design, about auditioning for musicals, about directing, about character development. And we're going to use this series of workshops in quite the same fashion, but we're just doing something a little bit different here to, maybe hopefully get the word out to more people. So that explains Theater 101 and Theater Rosedale Community Players. So let's get into it, okay? We'll bring up the slides here, or are they up? I can't tell. Let me see. There we go. Yes. And we'll go to, that's me. Hey, look at, there's me. And there's, yep, Rosedale Community Players. If you want more information, you can go to rosedalecommunityplayers.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can get all the information you need there. You can also go under our socials. If you have questions, you can reach us there, or you can reach us on our socials as well. So, all right, so let's keep moving here. What is set design? Set design is storytelling through space. What does that mean? That means it's an integral part of the production of a theater to, you're telling a story, and the actors use the story, use their abilities on stage to tell the story, the lighting people, all of those things. Set design is just another element of that storytelling. All right, so next up, we'll move along. There we go. What are the elements that shape a play? Okay, so you've decided that you're going to put on a play. Congratulations, it's exciting. There's nothing like live theater, but you need some elements to get that started, right? So what do you need? Well, first things first, you need your story. The story is the foundation that guides all of your design choices. It is the beginning, the middle, and the end. Your story is nothing without, or your production is nothing without a story. Now, it doesn't necessarily need to be a script. You could have an improv show. You could have all sorts of things, but you have to have a story. You have to have something in place that's going to guide that, and that is your story. Next up, we need a performance space. We need someplace to put the show on. The performance space, it is our physical constraints that shape possibilities. So whether you're doing it in a theater with a beautiful, massive stage, or you're doing it in a VFW hall banquet room, or you're doing it in the church auditorium on a smaller stage, it doesn't matter where you're doing it. You're doing your production, you're doing your play, and you need a space to put it on. Even if it's outside, that is still a space, whether it's a backyard or a park or an auditorium. It is still a performance space. What do we need next? Well, we need crew. The technical wizards, they build the reality of the production. So you need lights, you need sound, you need props, you need people to put all those things together for you. Don't try to do it yourself. It's a nightmare. But you need to, you need a crew. You need people to um, tell your actors where they're going on set, and move props, and change lights, and bring up sound, and play effects, and things like that. You need a crew. You also need people to take tickets, to sell concessions, to show people to their seats. You need a crew, and your technical crew is going to get you where you need to go. Next up, we need a cast. We've got our crew, we've got our story, we've got a space to do it. Now we need a cast. We need performers who inhabit this space and allow us to tell this story. Whether it's actors standing on a stage performing, a song, or a monologue, or even if it's just actors sitting on a chair reading, you still need somebody to perform. That's your cast. And lastly, and in a lot of ways, very importantly, we need a set. We need that visual world that helps bring our performance to life. And whether that's something very minimalist or something very elaborate, you still need some form of a set within your performance space where your actors, where your cast is going to perform the production. So those are the 5 elements that will shape a play. So we've got our story, we've got our performance space, we've got our crew, we've got our cast, we've got our set. What's next? Well, now we need to figure out what's going to make our set work. Okay. What do we want from our set? Well, first things first, we want something creative. We want it to capture the tone and the mood of the play. We want it to inspire people. We want people to look at that and go, oh, that's exciting. When they walk in and they're sitting and they're waiting to see a show, you want them to look at the set and you want them to go, oh, hey, look at that, or hey, look at that. You want to spark their imagination. You want to get them ready for what they're about to see. What else? It needs to be workable. It has to fit your performance space. The most beautiful set in the world is nothing if it doesn't fit properly, if it's too big, if it's too bulky, if there's not enough space for all of your actors. That's never going to work. It's never going to be good. You're not going to get the most out of that element of your production if your set doesn't work. We want it to be unique. We want to make our production memorable. The difference between plays and movies is that plays are performed over and over and over again. It's not something that's built to just be viewed once in one way and then always viewed in that way every single time. Personally, I've seen the show Arsenic and Old Lace 8 times maybe. It's one of my favorite shows, and every time I see it, I see very similar sets. But when I see one done with a set that's different or a little bit more unique or really just it sets itself apart, that really stands out for me. So you want it to be unique. You want to stand out. Everybody's doing Steel Magnolias, right? What is going to set your show apart? A beautiful set is going to really start to lay the foundation for what is going to set your show apart and make it unique. It's got to be supportive. It has to serve the actors and the technical needs. There's nothing worse as an actor than having no space to move. If your set is too bulky and takes up too much space and it doesn't give the actors the room, the freedom to move, to be their characters, you're not going to get the best performance out of them. And I will tell you this from a technical side, nothing will make your lighting person angrier than having to light a dark corner in the back of the stage that gets used once. It has to support what your technical and your performance sides are doing. Again, the most beautiful set in the world doesn't work if it can't be lit properly, if you can't get sound out of it, if you can't get your props in and out of it, if you can't, do your scene transitions properly. It's all for nothing. And if your performers can't perform on the space, you're never going to get a quality product. And then realistic goals. Don't try to be Broadway. Don't try to build the most elaborate, amazing, intricate set. Be realistic. If you have a small stage, you can't do 17 scene transitions, right? You have to multitask. You have to make spaces work. You have to be very realistic with what you're doing. You have your space. It has to fit. Everything has to work in place, and you have to be realistic. You can't try to fit everything into something that's not going to be. Okay, so we know what we want to do. Let's lay the foundation. Let's get those concepts that are going to help us figure it out. So scale. Scale is the appropriate for is it appropriate for the space and sorry, excuse me, the scale. Is it appropriate for the space and the scope of the work? Once again, I go back to Arsenic and Old Lace. It's a beautiful show that often has an upstairs. But if you don't have space for an upstairs, maybe you don't want to build it quite like that and have a balcony coming up. Maybe you want to make them go off that way. It's got to work within the scope and scale of your set. You may have to bring it down and make it smaller. If you have a scene in a cafe, maybe that cafe is just a tiny little sliver of the stage and not a massive amount of space. We need a theme. We need to figure out what our design theme is going to look like. This is where we collaborate with our tech and we read the script. You have to read the script. You have to read the script. You have to read the script multiple times. You have to look at what you're about to do, figure out, where the actors are coming in, how many entrances are there in this show? How many doors are there? How many individualized entrances and exits are there, right? If my actor is leaving stage right to go to the kitchen, it probably doesn't make sense for them to also leave stage right to go outside. If your actor is looking out the back window in the back of your stage, it probably doesn't make sense to imply that there's a hallway back there. So we have to look at the script. We have to talk to our director. We have to talk to our producer. We have to talk to anybody who is is working on the production of this. We need to talk to our set builders, figure out what we want it to look like, what we're going for, what kind of theme we need, what is going to fit what the director is trying to tell us, and what is going to fit what our space will allow for us. And then we need to look at our challenges. Space is a big determination. Do we have a lot of space? Do we only have a little space? Sometimes that's a challenge both ways. If you have a very large set, or if you have a very large stage, building a small tiny set is going to make it look weird. It's going to pull the audience's attention. It's going to distract from what's going on with your actors. We need to look at our budget. You know, do you have $100 to buy lumber, or do you have $1,000 to buy lumber? That's a big difference. You know, what can we get away with? What do we have in our budget to do? As a director, you have to look at that budget because you only have so much money to do a show. And if I have $1,000, I can't give 600 of it to build the set because I still need props. I still need costumes. I still need maybe some lighting. I might need to buy some sound elements. I may need to do other things. You know, I may need to get rigging or any number of different things. I can't spend everything on a set. I can only do a small portion of that. So the budget is key sometimes, knowing what you have and what you're going to be able to use to build. The crew. You can design the most amazing crew or the most amazing set. You can have all of the money in the world to build it. If you don't have people to put nails into wood and to lift set pieces and put them in place and drill holes, and you don't have anything. You can't get by without a crew. And to that as well, if you don't have a skilled crew, if you don't have people that are, you know, have some carpentry background or carpentry skills, you may have to make do with some other things. You may have to go with some other avenues because you just don't have the crew to put it together. You don't want to create a show that your crew can't put together, because then you're potentially putting your actors at risk if it's not safe. You're putting the audience at risk if it's not safe, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to put anybody at risk ever with any production. So making sure you know what your crew is doing, what they're capable of, is key, really, to building that set. Time. I mean, that is the one thing that we all need more of, right? And uh, you need time to build your set. And if you only have, most theaters have a show, and then they have another show, and then they have another show. So you may only have a 2-week span of time to get your set built. And so going back to our space, going back to our budget, and going back to our crew, we have to take time into account, because if we don't have a lot of time, we can't have, even with the best crew, even with the most amount of money and the most space to do it in, if we don't have the time to build it, we are in a lot of trouble. And as a volunteer group like Rosedale Community Players, we are, all of our set people are either working other jobs, or maybe they're retired, or maybe they're students. They have other things that they're doing in their lives. They have their family, their friends that they want to spend time with. So they can't dedicate 24/7 to building a set. Time is of the essence. So you have to take that into account. And then materials. Can we get enough wood? We can have the money to get it, but if we can't get a specific type of wood, or we can't get a specific window size or a door, are we going to be able to get the materials? Do we have materials on hand to put this together? What are we making this set out of? And are we going to be able to get those things? Now, sometimes that's a very low priority thing, because more often than not, we have the wood, we have the ability to get wood, but you just never know. So you do have to take into account what kind of materials you're going to need, what kind of materials you have, what kind of materials you need to get. And all of those things need to play a harmonious role between the space, the budget, your crew, your time, and your materials. So those are our foundation concepts. Now we need to figure out what kind of set we're building. And we're going to go into these a little bit more in depth, but I want to just go over them really quickly. We have a few different styles of sets, a few different genres of sets. We have realism. Okay, we have selective realism. We have what is considered skeletal scenery. We have a structural set. We have pictorial sets. And then we have some different forms of decorative. We've got symbolic objects, recycled objects, abstract, and shape. So let's talk about realism. What is a realistic looking set? Well, a realistic set is a set that is true to life. A room is a room. Uh, a patio is a patio. A diner is a diner. It is built to look. If you can see the picture here, this is a living room. We have our couch. We have our door. We have our walls. We have pictures on the walls. We've got a living room. For all intents and purposes, we built a living room on this stage, and it looks realistic. You're not having your audience do any kind of heavy lifting with the set itself and the background, because we're giving it everything we need. This is a very traditional style for theater. It is most theaters try to do this as much as possible because it really does help you feel immersed in it. For the particular show that you're looking at, this was a show that I directed called Mad Gravity. And Mad Gravity, we wanted the audience to feel like they were part of a living room. We couldn't do a set that was impressionistic, or didn't really fit the view of a living room, because we want people to feel like they're in the living room. So the way we designed this set is when they walked in, they felt like they were in these people's living rooms. And you have to do that with walls and all of the elements that go into making a space. Again, like I said, a room is a room. It's true to life. It's realistic. So next up, we have selective realism. Now, selective realism is very similar to realism. It's very true to life, but we've removed some elements. We are using certain elements to emphasize over walls. And so basically, with selective realism, you're taking out walls, you're taking out borders, you're taking out doors and things of that nature. If you see the picture here, this was a production of August Osage County, and to build the two different tiers of the house, three different tiers of the house, excuse me, they had to take away the walls. So you see the stairs, there's no secondary wall there. You see the open rooms, you see, even to an extent, you see outside the frame of the house, because they've taken the actual wall itself of the home in the back wall there, and they've removed it. So now we're seeing all the way to the outside. So we're seeing completely through this home. And we still feel like we're in a living room. It's still very true to life. It's just we've taken some elements out, and we've emphasized beds, and we've emphasized desks. We've taken a lot of stuff off the walls because we want to focus on the things that we have in the room. So we're not trying to make it look too much like a real house, because we really want to focus on what we have. Skeletal scenery would be next on our list. Skeletal scenery is basic framework. We're not doing any heavy lifting here. We're using props, we're using furniture to really drive home where we are and what this space is. If you look at this picture is from a production of Rabbit Hole. And with this production, this is a set that I designed. And Rabbit Hole is a very emotional, very raw show. So I wanted to tear down those walls in between these characters by literally tearing down the walls in between the characters. We had 0 walls. We had 0 doors. We had one door frame there in the back that you can kind of see to give us the visual representation of where a front door was, so that when people came in and out, we had that visual representation. But we used our actors, we used our set pieces, we used props to help us tell the story and help us draw our audience in. So with skeletal scenery, props are so important. Furniture is so important. We had in this set, we have a beautiful couch. a very relaxing couch that would look very at home in any of your living rooms. We have a coffee table in the bedroom. We have a child's. We have a little, a little daybed chair and a child's um, bookshelf. In the kitchen, we have a table. We have a counter. All of these things we're using to help us tell the story and divide our spaces, but we're really relying heavily on the story, and we're allowing the actors to tell that story more than we are the space itself. Structural. Structural is a really cool element. You'll see that a lot in some places. It's a permanent structure. It is a large arch or a giant wall or anything, and the rest of our scenery is just going to roll in and out. Here we have a production of Matilda. This is actually from the Broadway production of Matilda. And this set stays the way it is. You have the background of all the books, and up top you have the books hanging and the pages scattered around the stage, and all of your things come in. So we have this wall of books, and we have an arch of books over top of her. But we're at a birthday party. We're not in a crazy chaotic library. Right now we're at a birthday party. When those tables roll out, the table, the bed for her bedroom will roll in. When that rolls out, we'll roll in the school stuff. So we're using the structure, this giant structure, this giant wall of books in this photo. We're using that to bring us into the story, because this is a story. It's a children's story. So we're kind of hammering that home, that this is what this is. So we're using a structure to tell the story, and then we're bringing things in and out to help us kind of move the story along. This is a very common way of doing things for a lot of Broadway shows that travel, because you can do something like this. And uh, another element of that, in a lot of ways, is the play Hamilton. If you look at the set of the play Hamilton, it's just one giant. Um, it's a mess of ladders and scaffolding, but everything stays the same. And then they bring in tables, they bring in things of that nature, that all of the actors come in, they're on a, their chairs and tables and things like that. They bring those in to set the scene. So everything takes place in this one little space. They don't bring anything out ever, but they move steps to one side so that somebody can come out from the middle. They'll move them back to the other side. Then they'll bring two together so somebody can come up and go down the steps. You're relying on one set structure, and then you're using all of these other little elements to make that structure work for different things. Next up, we have pictorial. Pictorial is fun. It is a little bit of a controversial one nowadays with projected images, but pictorial sets are, very much what they say. We're using a painted or projected image to help us tell the story. Here we have the Broadway play Elf, and Elf uses this very well, because they're trying to go from the North Pole to New York City to a boardroom to a house to Central Park to a Chinese restaurant. That's a lot, even for a Broadway show, to achieve. So how do they do this? They project an image on the wall, or on a scrim, or whatever they're using to project this image, and that is taking us wherever we need to go. Right now, these people are on the streets of New York buying a hot dog. And in 2 seconds, once that changes and they move that hot dog cart out, they're going to be in a boardroom inside of a skyscraper. Minutes before that, they were in the North Pole. So we're using a picture in the back to help us tell our story, to build our set. And it's very similar to structural. We're then bringing pieces in. But instead of something that stays there the entire time, we're using multiple pictures, we're using multiple images to help tell that story. All right, next up, decorative. So we're using decoration to tell the story, and there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. One way is a symbolic object. If you're show is about a is about somebody who sews, taking a sewing machine and putting it in the middle of the stage, and having everything kind of o- occur around that, or a desk, or a bed, or something that is meaningful, that is symbolic to the story, to help us tell the story that we're telling. You're using that object to to build your set around. Um, you could also do just a massive set. I've seen productions of Matilda where they just built a giant book. So while that is a structural situation, it's also decorative because we're using one symbolic object. Some of the best sets give and take from all sorts of different ones. The big thing is you don't have to be like locked in to decorative or skeletal or realism. You can pick and choose from some of the different ones to figure out ways that work for you. Maybe your main set is realistic, but then we're using skeletal scenery for some of these little scenes that only happen here and there. We're at a doctor's office, or we're at a club, or we're at a wedding. So we're gonna, off to the side, we're gonna roll a couple things in here and there, and use those to tell the story of where we're at. But the overall theme is a living. So a symbolic object is something that your set is focusing in on. It's something that when your audience walks in, that's the first thing that they're going to see. They're going to see that vintage sewing machine. They're going to see that giant book, you know, and they're going to say, "Wow, that's interesting. I wonder what that means." And as the show goes on and the story gets told, then they start to realize, oh, hey, wow, this is, very important. Recycled objects. So this is one of the coolest kind of ways to do a set, if you have the ability to. The picture that you're seeing here in this slide is actually from a production of Les Mis. And in this production of Les Mis, they used the wall that the citizens built to keep the army out. They built their wall with all of their set pieces. So here you see tables, you see chairs, you see all sorts of different um, set components. And what these actors then do is they grab their set component, they pull it off of the wall, they pull it literally out of the wall, and then they sit and they do their scene. And then when these actors are done with this scene, they're going to take their chairs, they're going to take their tables, and they're going to put them back into the wall. It's such a cool way to use this. So now this wall it's a wall, but now it's also chairs and tables for a club or a bar or a pub. It's beds for a bedroom, or an orphanage, things of that nature. So, or a hospital. So we have all sorts of different elements that we're using in different ways, in different shapes. You may have a chair that is used as a chair, but then when you turn it around, it looks like a nightstand, or it's got something attached to the back of it, so it's now a tombstone, or a some kind of art piece, or a piano. It's gone from one thing to another. We're using the same thing, we're just using it in different ways. There's a lot of different ways to do that. You can, like I said, put it into the wall. You can make it part of your set. You can put it to the side or underneath, or whatever you want to do with it. Or you can turn it and it's something else. Or you can take that chair and bring it somewhere else. And so now this chair from the cafe is now a chair in somebody's study. Um, so we're using the same objects in different ways, in different scenes, for different purposes. So we're just recycling these objects, sometimes over and over again. Sometimes we're only just maybe using them twice. Sometimes maybe we're just using them once, and now they become decorative, for our set. Abstract. That is a skewed vision, right? So we have um, you have you're doing August Osage County, and that takes place in the living room, but maybe you don't do it in a living room. Maybe you make it one big situation, or you put it in somebody's apartment. You try to stage it in an apartment, or you just make it different. So no longer is your living room your living room. Now your living room is a nightclub or a something along those lines. So you're making your your vision, you're skewing your vision, whether it be coloring or anything along those lines. Maybe you want to do a pictorial and you want to draw your set. You want to draw New York City. Well, maybe we don't want to take itself too seriously, so we draw it as a cartoon, or we draw it um, as a sketch, like just little sketch lines. Maybe we do that with our living room. Maybe we draw all of the furniture. I did a play once where we didn't have budget for a kitchen, but we needed a kitchen. So we just painted the kitchen onto the walls. So we skew the vision a little bit. And now people look at that and they go, that's a kitchen. But we didn't need a sink or a refrigerator or any of those things, a stove that we would have in a regular kitchen cabinets. We don't have those things. We didn't have the budget for those things. So we painted them on, and people still knew what we were doing. They still got it. They still saw it, and they looked and they knew immediately that that was, in fact, a kitchen. It was just very different. And shape. We're moving the story through perspective. This is a little bit of a different one. This is sometimes if Hamilton does this where everything's in the round. So everything is kind of moving in a shape. So everything is always kind of adjusting. So we're using shape, and we're using, sometimes this is good if we have a space like a proscenium or something along those lines that we want to perform in. So we're using the shape to help us tell that story. So next up, we have, oh, there we go. So yeah, symbolic, I forgot to put those there. So symbolic objects, single items representing larger concepts, recycled object, repurposed items, create new meaning, abstract vision, abstract design, skewed vision, and shape driven. Geometric elements define space. All right, next up, how do we start? This is, I think, one of the toughest parts for everybody because you have all the intentions in the world to do it. You have all of the elements in place to get it done, but how do you start? Well, the easiest way, first things first, we have to read the script. We have to read the script. When I read a script, I mark all of the entrances. Okay, so in scene 1, character A goes out to the kitchen, character B goes to the bathroom, and characters A and C enter from outside. Okay, so now I know I've got 3 rooms in this home, or 3 separate doors in this home that need to lead to a bathroom, a kitchen, and outside. Now I can create a hallway, and now I have endless possibilities, or I can physically make those different doors. There's lots of ways to go about it, but I need to know where the characters come in and out of. I need to know what kind of things they interact with. Do they sit? Do they sit at a desk? Do they lay in a bed? Do they sit on a park bench? Are they in a plane? I need to know what the script is telling me about where we're going to be. And I can't get that by just looking at the notes. I need to read the script. So we have to plan for where those doors are going to be. I can build a living room on this stage, but where are the doors going to be? Where is it going to be convenient? Where's my green room? Where are my actors going to be coming from? Can my actors quickly get from point A to point B if they need to come into one door and out the other? All of those things go into account. We need to figure out where things are going. What do actors do? Does actor A come in and immediately go to one space, or does he have to walk across the stage to get there? What are we looking at here? So we want to figure out what we have, what we need. We make a list of all of those things, and then we start to draw it out. So we will draft it out. The easiest way to do this is to, first things first, just draw an outline of your stage. So the picture you see here, this is our stage, a crudish drawing of our stage here at Rosedale Community Players. And this was actually a draft of the set for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner that I had originally did. This was one of my first drafts. for Guest Who's Coming to Dinner. This is not what the show wound up looking like in any way, shape, or form. This was the original draft, and it gave us some ideas. But as you can see, there's space here for a couch and some chairs. There's space for a table and some chairs, and the actors will come in from one way, but they'll also have a secondary entrance off to the side. So we figure out what we need, we draw it out, and then we try to figure out what it's going to look like, where we're going to need things. And the easiest way to do that is drawing it and figuring it out, drafting our set first things first. Where's the furniture going to go? Where are the windows going to go? Where are the doors going to go? Do we need those things? Are we doing a set that needs those things? And if we're not doing a set where they need those things, where do our platforms go? Where's our furniture going to go? Where is our, where are we going to put props? Things like that. So anything that's going to be on the stage, you need to take account for where it's going to be, where it's going to be stored, where it's going to be moved to. So, if they move this table off to the side into the middle, well, we need to make sure that we have enough space in the middle of the set for that table to be moved. So we have to start drafting. We have to start planning. This is where talking with your director, talking with your tech crew, your producers, this is going to help you figure out what it is you need. Sometimes you even, if you have the ability, you can, look at your actors. If you're later on in the process, and you can see what your actors are going to do, and you can get some ideas for that if you need to adjust. But we need to figure out what we're doing, and we need to start by putting pen to paper. So the best way is to get a drawing of your stage, excuse me. Take a crude drawing of your stage. What are your dimensions? What are your elements? We have walls here. Our stage comes out, but we have walls on the side, and our stage goes deep back. So we don't have a wide stage, but we have portions that are wider than others. How wide are they? Can we put things in those spaces? Or are we going to need to just pretend like that's one, that wall doesn't really exist? Next thing, we need to build a model. This is going to show you a realistic look at what you're building, what you're creating. So here is this was the set that I built that I designed for Rabbit Hole. So if you remember the picture before, the couch was on the other side. But we have our couch, we have our dining room table, and we have our chair in the children's room with the bookshelf. So I can see it in real time. We also have a cat on the couch. There was no cat in the show. I just had the piece and was like, I'm going to put it on this set. Some people use, here I just used cardboard. I cut the cardboard to a length, to a scaled length from my actual set. And then I took some other cardboard pieces to build the platform in the back, as well as the doorway in the back. And then I use doll furniture. This is small doll furniture that I found on Amazon, and I use it to construct my set. So I can see what a chair looks like in this space. I can see what a couch looks like in this space. And I can kind of get an idea by creating a 3D miniature to visualize the space. It helps me see what works and what doesn't. Okay, if I want actors to come out one side, well, it's going to be a little bit easier than some of the other side. If I need them to get to the second floor, how are they going to get to the second floor? So I can see what needs to adjust and what needs to be adapted. In this one, we wound up having where the kitchen didn't work on the one side. So we had to move the kitchen to the other side, which meant we had to switch everything, which meant the door had to go from one side to the other. The couch had to go. Everything had to go to swap, but we didn't change the room in the middle. We didn't need to do that because that wasn't affected by our set. But once we found out, unfortunately later on in the process, but our space that we performed this show, it wasn't going to work for us to have our actors coming in and out of this one particular area. We had to move it. So we just, in this case, it was very simple. I just swapped the living room and the kitchen. But uh, by building this model, it helped me visualize. So when I was able to then go turn around and fix it, all I had to do was move piece A to piece B to where piece A was. So creating this mini um, set, and this is cardboard. This is I used an X-Acto knife to cut my cardboard. I used command strips to hold my set together, to hold pieces together. So you kind of see under that table, there's a little bit of command strip holding that table in place, which allows me to move it a little bit easier. So this is literally just a cardboard box, some doll furniture, some command strips, and I used some, a little bit of tape there on the end to give myself a 3D model. I've seen people that build their 3D models just all with cardboard and make everything, one big cardboard. Some people make bigger dioramas. Some people use other kinds of toys, or they use different things. They'll use a microphone, a ear pod case. They'll use a, a, a mouse to visualize their furniture. Whatever you need to see it. I like seeing furniture. So this was a situation that worked for me, buying a bag of doll furniture and using that to build my models. So building your model is going to give you that look for what you want your set to look like. It's going to show you exactly what you need. But it's also going to expose your flaws in your design. It's going to show me where my strengths are, and it's going to show me where my flaws were. I had a lot of ideas for what I wanted to do with this set. I wanted some stairs. I wanted a wall in the back to kind of make for a stairwell. But when I built it on the model, it didn't work. I could see right away that that wasn't going to fit. It wasn't going to look right. Putting a wall in the middle of a skeletal set didn't really work for what I was trying to do. So by seeing it physically, I knew immediately that wall had to come out. And then by building it in a way that it wasn't permanent, by using just command strips to keep everything in place, I was able to move things. And when we found that our space wasn't going to work for the current set, I was able to adjust things pretty easily because I just stared at my model and I looked and I said, okay, how do I fix this? What can I do? Is it going to be simple? Am I going to just have to move a couple things, or do I have to completely reimagine this? So for this, what I actually wound up doing is I built a completely new set. So instead of just swapping everything, I made a new set with the cardboard, and then I repositioned my furniture where it was, and then adjusted it until I figured out what I needed to do. But building that model is going to allow you to see it. Now, you could probably also do some 3D renderings on the computer if you're, talented enough for that. That could also work, but you really need to build a model so that you can see exactly what it's going to look like. All right. So that is kind of the basic foundations of what we need to do. So let's talk about some practical design advice. Okay. First things first, you have to read the script multiple times. As I've said, you need to note specific location requirements. Is the bathroom upstairs? Is so okay, so now I have to have stairs. Do I need stairs, or can I just get away with a hallway? Do they go right up? Like, what am I going to see by reading this script that's going to show me exactly what this is? Um, I designed a set for a show called Ripcord, and Ripcord takes place in a assisted living center. It takes place in a haunted house. It takes place inside of a plane, and also after having jumped out of the plane in the sky, and it takes place in a park. So by reading that several times and getting an idea of, this and that, and also where these little scenes, where does the haunted house come into play? Can I get away with keeping my haunted house on this side, or do I need to do something else? How quickly do I need to switch from a haunted house to an airplane? How quickly do I need to switch from a haunted house to a park? How quickly do I need to go back to the assisted living center? There's so many things that you need to see, and you can only really get that by reading the script multiple times, making notations. Are there windows? Are there doors? Is there a bathroom attached to this? Are we needing to see any of these things? Are they going in here and talking? Because if they're going into the bathroom and talking, to the actors on stage, that notes that the bathroom is pretty close to the room. So they can't go down a hallway. They probably have to go into a bathroom. Now, how do I get them into a bathroom? So reading over and over again, making notes of how many actors are on stage, where they're coming in and out of. Are they interacting with furniture? Are they interacting with massive props? I don't care if they're picking up a coffee mug, but I care that they need to have a coffee mug somewhere. So where are they putting that coffee mug? Where's that coffee mug coming from? Where is that couch going? Like, is it in the middle of the room? Is it off to the side? And so reading the script over and over again helps you get a better idea of what you need. Reuse and adapt materials. Your creative solutions are going to be your best friend when you are building a set. If you are, for our organization, we use the same space for all of our shows, and sometimes that means we can reuse elements of our set. So the side walls that we currently have in place on our set were used for our first show this season, and they wound up staying there for the second show. And then the third show, one of them had a huge hole in it, cut in it to make an entranceway. And now, another group is using our stage, and they're using that as well. So, what can we reuse? What can we adapt? How can we get creative to, maybe save some money, allow for some other elements of our show to shine? If I can build my set cheaply, if I can get my set built cheaply, then I can focus on cool costumes. I can focus on props. For Mad Gravity, we bought like 100 kickballs, and by reusing some elements that we already had in place from our previous sets, we were able to reroute some of those funds to allow us to have cool props and to have have a beautiful design, beautiful decorated set. So creative solutions are going to save your budget. They're going to save your producer's sanity. They're going to get you a thumbs up from your set builder as well. Plan for movement. Once again, if you oversaturate your set with furniture pieces, if you make lots of space for doors and things like that, and you don't give your actors the proper amount of space they need, it's going to hinder their performances. You need to consider their pathways. You need to consider their transitions. Are they going out the door? If my actor's going out one door to go to kitchen, but they come in next and, at the end of the scene, they come out of a bedroom on the other side of the stage, can my actor get there? Or do I need to make that entrance and exit close to each other? Do I need my actor to run across the stage quickly and, changing a costume or finding a prop just so that they can go on another way? Like, you have to plan for the movement. You have to plan for their space. They have to exist in there and live in there. People's living rooms don't have, tiny, tiny passageways between different pieces of furniture. They have space so that they can move because that's what makes people feel comfortable. So you need to plan for your actors moving, make pathways and transitions that allow them to be their best, and prioritize safety and story. Practical concerns all day over aesthetic ones. Having a massive chandelier hanging above your stage is cool, but it's not practical sometimes unless you're doing phantom. So maybe your lighting above the stage isn't an above lighting for your room. Maybe you're just using the lights from there. Maybe we're not going to build a massive rotating door. Maybe we're just going to make it look like a rotating door because we don't have the space. Things like that. Let's be practical. Let's let's, use what we have, take into account the space and all of the things like that, and make the space work for what we're doing. It can look pretty all day, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. The beautiful thing about the Hamilton set, as an example, I it's one of my favorite sets because the Hamilton set, pretty much everything is there that they need. So many of their props are stored on the set themselves. So many of their furniture pieces are stored on the set themselves. So they're able to quickly grab them. And so it looks beautiful, but it's a very practical set. It looks so grandiose, and you've got the rotating table, um, and it looks really cool and amazing. But at its heart, it is such a practical set because it allows the actors to not think. They don't have to, I don't have to leave the stage to grab my scroll. I can just grab it off to the side. It's sitting behind this barrel, things like that. So, um, prioritizing safety and your story, using practical techniques, and not overly worrying about the aesthetics of it. All right, next slide. Or maybe that's our last slide. Okay, so let's look at some examples. We've already talked about some, so let's look at some examples. So first up, we have the Mad Gravity set. Again, here we have a living room in someone's home. But we also, off to the side, we had some props and some costumes because these people living in this home were actors, and they turned their living room into a performance space. So they would have costumes and props, but it's still a living room. So we have walls, we have paintings on the walls, we have furniture, we have a place for them to store their drinks. Next up is a set for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. This is what the set wound up looking like. We have a beautiful upstairs in the back there. There's a little step up for them to go upstairs. We've got some off to the side. We've got an entranceway for the kitchen. And we've just got a beautiful looking living room that we have multiple people working through and existing on. We have a very small stage. And for these six people to not look crowded is such a delight. And I know it pleased our directors greatly and probably pleased the actors as well, having so much space to move. Next up, we have some other productions that have taken place around it. So these are some stages from our friends over at Stagecrafters. That's their production of Beauty and the Beast, as well as in the bottom corner there, that's one of their productions of Color Purple, as well as, gosh, I can't remember what the bottom one in the middle is. And then the other ones are from our friends over at Grosse Pointe Theater. This is the bottom corner there. That one's from Newsies. This is in the top middle there. That's Failure, a love story, and a beautiful set that they built for Lion in Winter, this gorgeous medieval castle that they built. So you see here that they've used lots of different elements. Stagecrafters uses some projections, but it also looks like they've got some structural elements that they bring things in and out of. You also see that with Newsies, where they have the giant newspapers along the back wall, and then they've got scaffolding that moves around. For Failure a Love Story, we have a very skeletal set. We've got lots of little pieces and little set pieces and carts and chairs and tables that help us tell our story. And then we've got the selective realism with Lion in Winter, where we've got some walls, but they don't go all the way up. You kind of see the very kind of artistic way that they cut off to the side there, so as not to have to build them all the way to 10, 12 feet tall. They've just built these beautiful sets. These are some amazing sets that were designed and built by some really talented people in the area, and I just wanted to highlight those. Because we have some really talented people in this area, and these are some beautiful sets. So that is it. That is Set Design 101. So thank you for all your information, for visiting. If you will bring up the next slide here, our last slide. Our next Theater 101 is going to be on July 15th, and that workshop is going to be all about auditions. So what does it take to audition? How do we audition? And also from a director's standpoint, what do we want to look for? How do we want to set ourselves apart? You're auditioning as a director, you're auditioning for your actors just as much as they're auditioning for you. So from the acting side and the directing side, we're going to talk about auditions. You can get more information on that at rosedaleCommunityPlayers.com, as well as on our socials. We'll have more information on that in the coming weeks as we get ready for that. So, um, so yeah, that's our time. Thank you guys so much. This is a new format for us, so we're working out the kinks. So hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, like I said, if you want to just leave them in the comments. And when we do our Theater 101 podcast for our new podcasting channel, which is our YouTube that this is linked to, you'll be able to hear that as well, and we'll get you some answers. Or if not, I'll also probably just reach out to you individually and help you out. So I hope this was informative and helpful. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we will see you soon, hopefully on July 15th. Have a good night.